Hi, I'm Whitney. To get to know me better, watch the first video about my adventures. There's the whole story, and the link to the video will be in the description. I'm in high school. I love all kinds of puzzles, riddles, and detective stories. I try to keep a low profile in class, but the new kid savior seems to mess up all my plans. And the curious thing is, he's asking me to help with one investigation, an abandoned house, a terrible fire in which his grandmother was injured, and we want to solve this mystery. Many of you wrote in the comments on the first video about me and Savior to help him. Thank you. So I'm telling you what happened next. I felt sorry for Savior and wanted to help him. But this abandoned house was as shrouded in mystery as cobwebs. Until a couple of years ago, it was one of the most beautiful on the street. A neat lawn, flowers, and an owner who liked to sit long hours in a rocking chair on the terrace and read a book. The woman was old, but always smiling and hospitable. She had a strange name, Zelda. But apart from that, she was an ordinary woman. When I was just a baby, my mother used to talk to her. She, like me, wasn't much of a people person, but she and Zelda giggled at length over a cup of tea. And when that fire happened, it took my mother a long time to come to her senses. For weeks, she sat in her room, pining. We never talked about Zelda, but it still brings tears to her eyes when she looks at that abandoned house. I felt that it was a hidden secret. And now Savior, Zelda's grandson, my classmate, and just a guy I like, asks me to help solve this mystery. Wandering around abandoned areas is one of my favorite things to do, especially at night, when every rustle makes me feel cold inside. More than once or twice, I have found frightened cats hiding in abandoned houses, and rats screeching in different directions when you shine a flashlight on them. But I've never seen anything really strange. No ghosts, no spirits, though I wish I had. Maybe I'll get lucky in this house. So Savior and I agreed to sneak in at night. I sat by the window to wait for Savior's signal. I was trembling inside, but not with fear, believe me. Savior, the way he was looking at me, his smile, it made me nervous. So Savior turned on the flashlight on his phone and gave me a short signal. He was waiting for me outside. I quietly opened the door and went downstairs. I had done this trick hundreds of times before, so I did it completely silently. We nodded to each other and walked quickly down the street. I could see that Savior was nervous, so I took his hand to reassure him. He smiled at me in return. 10 minutes later, we were standing in front of the house. Rumors and legends had long ago grown in it, for the sashes of the broken windows slammed in the strong winds, and at night terrorized the whole neighborhood. And there were street cats who sometimes gave such concerts that it made one's blood run cold. And who was not aware of these details, it seemed that strange, incomprehensible things were happening in this house. Savior, let's go, I whispered to the boy without letting go of his hand. He only nodded in response. I squeezed his hand tighter. His hand was icy, but it was very pleasant. We jogged across the abandoned lawn and grabbed the handle of the old front door. Surprisingly, it was intact. I gave it a quick push. There was a terrible creaking sound. The door opened inward, and there was total darkness. I wanted to clap my hands. What an adventure! But Savior was pale as death. He was scared. I'll go first and you follow me. He barely nodded to me, and we disappeared behind the front door. It was dark inside. Good thing I brought flashlights. I didn't want anyone to notice the lights in the building from the street, but they were dimmed as much as possible. They would call the police, and that would be the end of our adventure. There were cobwebs all over the house, and the smell of burning was barely perceptible. The living room on the first floor was what was left of it. An old easy chair, a small table where Zelda, the mistress of the house, and my mother used to drink tea. There were paintings on the walls, but it was different to see them because of the dust, cobwebs, and traces of fire. The wall near the easy chair was a solid bookstore, where spiders rained on the dusty books now. "Have you been here, Savior?" I whispered. "As a child, perhaps? Zelda was your grandmother." Savior shook his head in a negative way. "No, I wasn't. Mom didn't get along with Zelda, but grandmother loved me very much and always gave me presents." Savior slowly lit the room with the flashlight, trying to find something important to solve the mystery of that mysterious fire. And suddenly, he cried out in surprise. "Look, Whitney!" He shined the flashlight on the books, and strangely enough, one of them stood out strongly against all the others, covered with dust. It was as good as new. It had a shiny leather binding, and there was a symbol on it. My grandmother had once given me a pendant with the same symbol. Savior whispered in a trembling voice. His hand reached for the book, and when he touched it, he heard a tremendous noise. A cold wind came down on us. The lanterns went out, and I had the feeling we weren't alone. "Savior?" But there was no answer, and my eyes couldn't get used to the darkness. "Savior?" I shouted a little louder, but in vain. Suddenly, someone's icy hand grabbed me and pulled me into the cold darkness. If you want to know what happens next, how our investigation will end, please leave a comment below the video and be sure to like it. And subscribe to the channel, then you won't miss the next video.